we have with us the Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, who also doubles as the Member of Parliament for the good people of Achima Mwebieja North, Honorable Benito Usubio. I would also like to acknowledge some representatives from GNPC, Ghana Immigration Service, Ghana Armed Forces, and the Ghana National Intelligence Bureau, who have joined us this morning. So on that note, I'll yield to Honorable Minister for his introductory remarks, and then we'll take the substantive presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. The National Coordinator, staff of the Ghana Boundary Commission, staff of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, the media, and my sister, the Honorable Deputy Minister for Information. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, the Honorable Samuel A. I would like to work annually on 7th June by African Union member states in context of the implementation of the African Union Border Program, AUBP. The AUBP aims at addressing the persistence of lack of delimitation and demarcation of African boundaries, resulting in the creation of undefined zones to facilitate and support the delimitation and demarcation of African boundaries and to develop cross-border initiatives among AU member states. Today's briefing is a special one, as it also seeks to officially outdoor to the public the Ghana Boundary Commission and the work it has been doing to effectively manage Ghana's international land and maritime boundaries as stipulated in Act 795 of 2010. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the Commission has been very active over the past 3 years. Under the able leadership of the National Coordinator and my very good friend, Major General Emmanuel Kotia, the Commission has been parading the length and breadth of Ghana's boundaries, ensuring that various mishaps along the country's international boundaries are attended to. I know some of you have been very privy to the works of the Commission on the ground, reporting live the activities of the Commission. You have all been invited to help promote the Commission. As a relatively new institution, most Ghanaians do not know of the existence of the Commission. Those who do not know the exact mandate of the Commission and how different the Commission is from other border management institutions. I encourage you to pay attention to the presentation about to be delivered by the National Coordinator and to make relevant submissions through your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Deputy Minister. On that note, I would invite the National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Major General Kotia, to talk about their mandates as well as their success stories and challenges in relation to their role since operationalization of the Commission, most especially to talk about what they've been doing with respect to boundary surveillance, boundary audits, among others. Major, your audience.
The host Deputy Minister for Information, our dear Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, the Deputy Controller General, very good friend of mine and staff of the Ghana Immigration Service. We are very happy that you have come here in your numbers to support us. The members of the Executive Committee and the staff of the Ghana Boundary Commission, members of the media, good morning to you all. Today, we are going to look at the Ghana Boundary Commission in perspective, relating to the works that are being undertaken by the Ghana Boundary Commission. I wish to state that the Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources has stated that there are a lot of people who have heard of the Ghana Boundary Commission, yet they do not understand what we do. I also know that the Substantive Minister for Lands and Natural Resources has always been saying that we should try to get an opportunity like this to tell Ghanaians of our story. By way of introduction, the Ghana International Land Boundary Statistics are as follows. We share a land boundary with Togo, both land and maritime, but I will start with the land boundary. And approximately the length of our land boundary with Togo is about 906 kilometers. We also share a land boundary with Burkina Faso to the northern part of Ghana, 590 kilometers. And with Côte d'Ivoire, our land boundary is approximately 730. In between, we have rivers and streams, which occupy. Some of them are dry, some also are flowing, especially during the rainy season. On Ghana's international maritime boundary, currently, we have a maritime boundary with Togo, Benin, and Nigeria, which covers 200 nautical miles. I must say that this issue, I'll come back to the issue of the Ghana-Togo maritime boundary, especially where currently negotiations are ongoing on it. We have a maritime boundary with Côte d'Ivoire, 200 nautical miles, and the length of Ghana's eastern to west maritime domain is about 780 kilometers at the extent of the exclusive economic zone. Now, as we mentioned earlier on, the Act 795 of Parliament established the Ghana Boundary Commission in 2010. Since 2010, only the governing body has been the organ that has been operational, meaning being inaugurated. Now, from 2020, the executive head of the Boundary Commission was appointed, and we came into full operations in 2021 with the employment of permanent staff and secondary staff and the acquisition of office space. We then continued setting up the office alongside the operationalization of our activities. The activities, efforts, and achievements of the Ghana Boundary Commission have all been geared towards the fulfillment of the Commission's mandate as spelled out by law and the strategy of the objectives set out by the Commission. The Commission's mandate has a wider implication for safeguarding the territory of the state at all times in collaboration with various actors within and outside Ghana. And just briefly, let me mention to you that one of the key characteristics of a state is that a state must have a defined boundary. And how do we have a defined boundary? You can only define your boundary, territory. You can only have a defined territory when you have defined boundaries. That is how important the Ghana Boundary Commission is, because the responsibility of defining our boundaries, both land and maritime boundaries, and to some extent air boundaries, is the responsibility or is the mandate that we are supposed to undertake. Now, by way of mandate, we're supposed to lead negotiations with a neighboring country concerning land or maritime boundary disputes between Ghana and that country. We undertake fiscal demarcation of land boundaries and delimitation of maritime boundaries. Whenever determined with a neighboring country, we place bows and maritime markers along some of the courses of the maritime boundaries of Ghana. Let me mention that so far as land boundaries are concerned, there is no dispute so far as our land demarcations are concerned. So what the Ghana Boundary Commission clearly is doing and is continuing to do now is reaffirmation. These land demarcations, we are not doing new demarcations because there is no dispute so far our land demarcations are concerned. We also to encourage negotiated settlement of border disputes in preference to litigation. In collaboration with relevant security agencies, we ensure the security of the boundaries of Ghana to safeguard the territorial integrity of Ghana at all times. Through negotiation, determine cross-border matters among communities, promote trans-border cooperation and local community development, advise government on international conventions in relation to the boundaries of Ghana and the signing and ratification of treaties related to land and maritime boundaries, address issues related to the use of natural resources that straddle land and maritime boundaries, formulate policies and programs on international boundaries, including land and maritime boundaries, and then perform any other function auxiliary to the objects of the Commission as determined by government. The vision is clearly stated on the slide to ensure that Ghana's land and maritime boundaries are effectively secured and managed within the framework of international law, peace and security, and the African Union and ECOWAS protocols of African and regional integration. The mission is to delimit and manage Ghana's international boundaries, including settling boundary disputes through the implementation of national legislations and regional and international conventions on boundary management and cross-boundary cooperation in Africa. When the Commission was established, we set out to come out with a strategic plan. And the key focus and objectives of our strategic plan are fivefold. First is based on institutional capacity building of the Ghana Boundary Commission, securing the land and maritime boundaries of Ghana, and this involves delimitation, reaffirmation of our boundaries with a neighboring country. And let me state here that there is no way by which the Ghana Boundary Commission will be reaffirming a boundary without the involvement of a neighboring state. It is done jointly with a neighboring state. Our responsibility gives us the mandate. The mandate of the Ghana Boundary Commission gives us that responsibility of discussing and negotiating or performing tax with a neighboring state. There is no institution in Ghana that has that mandate of directly negotiating with another state so far as the reaffirmation or delimitation of our land and maritime boundaries are concerned. I want this to be clear. We also assist in boundary dispute resolution, cross-boundary governance, and a strategic policy framework. Now, since the Commission was operationalized, there have been a number of major activities that the Commission has undertaken. I want to first start with our activities on the northern corridor between Ghana and Burkina Faso. And the map that you see on your right also speaks to it. We've had a multi-agency mapping and operational exercises along the Ghana-Burkina Faso border. We've done it on a number of occasions, but let me rightly say that because of the situation in Burkina Faso, we've not had the full collaboration or cooperation from Burkina Faso in conducting joint reaffirmation. So we've not been able to do any joint reaffirmation, but then we've had a discussion with them and we are going to look at joint reaffirmation very soon. We've had a joint land boundary consultative meeting with Burkina Faso, and we've had a technical meeting with them. The consultative meeting was held in Paga in 2021, and just this year, in March, we had a meeting in Ouagadougou with our counterparts in Burkina Faso. During those meetings, it was agreed that we should start reaffirming our land boundary as soon as possible. So once that has been secured from the Burkina government, we should be able to start work on this as soon as possible. On the western corridor, that is between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, we conducted a number of mapping and multi-agency assessments, mapping exercises along some selected areas on the Ghana-Cote d'Ivoire border, and specifically I'll mention Dollar Power. Dollar Power was one of the first engagements that we had on the land boundary with Burkina of Cote d'Ivoire, just because there was an incident that came up there. And then in subsequent visit, we've done with other agencies. We've gone there with the security agencies, including Ghana Immigration Service, the Ghana Armed Forces, and what have you. We've also gone there with the Forestry Commission because it has implications for forest. The boundary has implications for the forest reserve in Dollar Power. We've also had the Minerals Commission also going over, and the Ghana Geological Survey Authority going over us for joint assessment in that area, because both Geological Service and the Minerals Commission activity, there are a lot of activities that are ongoing, and that is affecting our land boundary. And that is what we've done in that request. We've also, specifically, we've had a very good strategic relationship with the National Boundary Commission of Cote d'Ivoire. And we've had not less than 4 meetings, either in Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire, so between the two commissions. We've ended up going further to set up joint mixed technical committees, which are going to go into a number of our activities for implementation. I must mention that the relationship and the activities that we have had with Cote d'Ivoire, National Boundary Commission of Cote d'Ivoire, have been very successful and very effective over the years. And we continue to collaborate in that regard. On the Eastern Corridor, we've also had a number of mapping and operational land exercises between Ghana and Togo. We undertook a joint Ghana-Togo community sensitization on land boundary reaffirmation exercise at Aflao, between Aflao and Akanu. We've also done a reaffirmation on land boundary pillars, which was covering the phase 1, covering an approximate distance of 50 kilometers along the international boundary line. In the phase 2, we've just completed a 60-kilometer reaffirmation on land boundaries between Bagbabe and Afegame in the central part of the Volta region of Togo. This activity just ended the latter part of last month. At the beginning of the exercise, we had the occasion to have the Honorable Deputy Minister to commission the sensitization exercise. But let me also mention that there have been a number of success stories between us and Togo. There was one time that we had a boundary problem at a place called Pulmanku in the Pusiga district. And when we went there jointly with the our Togolese counterparts, on the spot we were able to resolve and announce to the whole world that the land boundary markings that was originally affirmed by the legacy documents is what should be respected. And the Togolese ceded that part that they were occupying to Ghana based on the negotiations and discussions that we had on the ground. On the maritime boundary activities, we have had, I alluded earlier on that we have about 10 kilometers, 10 nautical miles maritime boundary with Nigeria. We've had a meeting, an introductory meeting with our Nigerian counterparts, the National Boundary Commission of Nigeria in Abuja, sometime in October 2021. And we discussed various ways so that we could jointly come out with a strategy in which we could delimit our international land boundary. We've also discovered our Nigerian counterparts on the overlapping continental shelf, which is beyond the 200 nautical miles with Ghana. That is something that is outstanding. And the reason why we have not continued with the discussions on the maritime boundary of Nigeria has been the discussions that are going on with Togo currently. Once those discussions are over, we would reignite those discussions with Nigeria. Ghana has a challenge with Togo so far as our maritime boundary is concerned. This came up since 2016. Therefore, the President of Ghana and Togo decided that Ghana and Togo should establish a technical committee, a joint technical committee, to negotiate on how to resolve the maritime disputes. These negotiations have been going on over the years. I must say that the negotiations have reached a very important level where probably we may be seeing the negotiations coming to fruition very soon. But the negotiations are still ongoing. They are the final stages, and once that is done, that would be announced to the general public. So negotiations are going on very well. It's got to the involvement of the two head of states so far as these negotiations are concerned. And then we are hoping that once this is resolved, the Qatar Basin, which is very close to the boundary, to the international maritime boundary, would be open up to investors for oil and what have you, and other activities, and even the fisher folk in that area. So once that is not resolved, we know that investors are waiting to see how that can be open. So the negotiations are ongoing, and we are hoping that it will end soon so that the area will be open. On Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, you all remember that in 2017, the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea ruled in favor of Ghana so far as the international maritime boundary is concerned. Currently, what we are doing in Cote d'Ivoire is to proceed on the implementation of the ITLOS ruling. And we've had fruitful discussions with the National Boundary Commission of Cote d'Ivoire on how to proceed on this. The two commissions have been discussing details, and this month, the two commissions are even going to meet at the terminating point to discuss further on how to implement this. On our own, for the very first time since the ruling, the Ghana Boundary Commission, in conjunction with the Ghana Navy, has gone on a maritime inspection along the maritime boundary that was declared by the ITLOS. And I want to say that all is going on well. There have not been any evaluations so far as the international maritime boundary is concerned. We have had engagements with GNPC, the Ghana Navy, the Ghana Boundary Commission, with the support from the Ghana National Procurement Corporation, acquired a state-of-the-art drone. And this drone that you see, this live drone that you see in front of me, is one of the equipment that was acquired by the GNPC. We have one of the best cameras so far as picking instruments are concerned in the country. I can clearly attest to that. Now, we also have been working with the Ghana Navy so far as our inspections are concerned. The mandate lies on us, but we don't have the tools, and we need the tools of the Ghana Navy. So the Ghana Navy has been collaborating very well with us so far as that aspect is concerned. They also have drones that we facilitated through the Ghana National Procurement Corporation for them to use on their ships along the maritime boundaries. There are other key activities that were undertaken by the Commission. We were admitted to the African Union Boundary Program once the Commission was operational. We led the advocacy for the ratification of the African Union Convention on Cross-Border Cooperation, the Niamey Convention. I am happy to announce that the President has assented to the instrument, and the Commission will formally be handing over the instruments at the AU headquarters sometime next month. We've also searched and retrieved a number of legacy documents defining Ghana's boundary with neighboring countries in collaboration with other agencies. We have had a joint commemoration of last year's African Border Day with the National Boundary Commission of Cote d'Ivoire at Elubu between 7th and 10th June. We've also conducted needs assessment on the social facility of deprived border communities for rehabilitation. Let me mention here that one of our key strategic objectives is to identify very deprived communities in the border areas for us to be able to source for funding to be able to support them. And I will mention 2 here. Dollar Power has been one of the key places. No access rule, we were able to facilitate the construction, and currently construction work is going on between Intraso to Dollar Power, which has been made possible by the Ministry of Roads. The whole amount is about 78 million. In conjunction with that, the Sapelga road to the border in the Upper East region is also under that project. The second thing too is that we've just received an approval of funding from the ECOWAS for us to rehabilitate a community school at Leklebi Kame. I just got information yesterday, Leklebi Kame, and that is something that we facilitated. So that is, these are so, and I want to use this forum to appeal to international partners, donors, and various agencies who can support us to be able to intervene in the border communities so that we will be able to support them in rehabilitating health clinics, opening up the areas, rules, water, provision of water. Our strategic goal is deprived border communities. And when you travel to those deprived border communities, you understand what we say. And we deal with them on a daily basis when we go to those communities. And it is important for us to assist them in that wise. Additionally, it is also a way of building that confidence in them and deterring violence extremists in coming there to come and encourage them to join them. That is another strategy in that. Facilitation of the construction of these roads, I've mentioned them already. We are having partnership with various groupings nationally. There are so many institutions in the country that we collaborate with. I mentioned Forestry Commission, Minerals Commission, the Ghana National Procurement, Ghana Geological Service, Ghana Immigration Service, the National Intelligence Bureau. Indeed, the National Intelligence Bureau has a seconded staff, and the Ghana Immigration have seconded staffs in the Ghana Boundary Commission, which is very important for our operations. The Petroleum Commission, other agencies like the ministries like Foreign Affairs and others. And let me mention at this stage that the governing board of the Ghana Boundary Commission is mostly ministerial. So you have the Attorney General on the board, you have the Minister of Foreign Affairs on the board, you have the Minister of Defense on the board, and the board is chaired by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. There are a number of pictorials that I'll let them flip for you to see. I'm not going to speak to them, but just for you to see some of their practical activities and events that have taken place on the field that you can see. The second pictorial picture you see on your left is a pillar inspection on the Ghana-Togo border. On the right are some of our technical teams using GNSS equipment, and down there as well. And then in the middle there is training on the drones. And then normally most of our border communities where we go to work are areas that are not accessible. So sometimes in getting to those places, you need the support of the Ghana Air Force and the Ghana Air Force as a whole. So the Ghana Air Force has been supporting us very much, especially in dollar power. There's no access road to dollar power. How you can get to dollar power is only by air. And the Ghana Air Force has been very supportive in that regard. Now, speaking specifically on the African Border Day, is commemorated annually on the 7th of June by African Union member states. Now, all boundary commissions normally take the lead so far as these celebrations are concerned. It was instituted by the African Union to commemorate annually on the 7th of June. It was adopted during the second conference of the African ministers in charge of border issues in March 2010. The day is set aside to educate African Union members, African border populations, regional economic groupings, civil society, academics, and other stakeholders on border-related issues in the continent. The day is a day to reflect and be reminded of the importance of our borders, not only as lines on the map, but also as critical aspects of national and regional security, and then the stability and the development of countries or states within that period. Now, the statutory commemoration also serves to sensitize stakeholders on the role of borders in promoting peace, security, and stability, as well as further highlighting the role of the African Union Border Program and the African Union Convention on Cross-Border Cooperation, known as the Niamey Convention, as frameworks for integrated border governance program. The Niamey Convention promotes cross-border cooperation at local, regional, continental, and global basis levels. It facilitates peaceful resolution of boundary disputes and seeks to transform border areas into catalysts for growth, social, economic, and political integration of the continent. Now, the commemoration of this day, that Border Day, is also an opportunity to reflect on the progress we have made individually as member states and collectively as a continent in securing and managing our boundaries and the challenges that lie ahead of us. Now, the General African Union theme for 2023 and also for the Border Day, as adopted by the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union, is Acceleration Day after implementation. Now, looking at the Niamey Convention, the ratification of the Niamey Convention by Ghana's Parliament this year was very important. 17 out of 55 African Union member states have signed to the convention. Ghana signed to the convention in 2017, but we didn't ratify the convention until the Parliament ratified it this year. Only 7 countries have ratified it, and 5 have deposited it. I mentioned to you that we will be depositing our instruments next month in accordance with Article 7 of the convention. We are waiting for a communication from the African Union when the Commissioner for Political Peace and Security will be available for that to be done. So Ghana will definitely do that by mid-July, hopefully. The justification for ratification are that it contributes to the development of marginalized border areas. It allows economic growth in border areas through the creation of employment opportunities, development of infrastructure, trade, transport, and other sectors of border zones. It promotes an Africa with borders serving as bridges for peace, growth, and development, created as pivotal stepping stones towards increased demand for cross-border cooperation. Now, in ratifying this convention, the Ghana Parliament did it in accordance to Article 75 of the Constitution. It is intended to improve Ghana's image as a country that is committed to the African Union and the ECOWAS agenda. It offers a significant chance to boost security and combat terrorism by establishing cross-border cooperation with neighboring countries and strengthening Ghana's integrated management system. Now, there are a number of issues that are related to the convention. I will not bore you into most of them, but I'll just highlight some few ones, important ones here. It promotes cross-border cooperation at the local, regional, and the continental levels. It allows to seize opportunities arising from the borders. It promotes peace and stability, and that is very important, through the prevention of conflicts, integration of the continent, and fostering unity. The Ghana Boundary Commission looks forward to continue with a lot of activities. I've mentioned some of the activities that we have undertaken, but in the coming months and years, we are looking at having various consultative meetings, with continuing consultative meetings with our neighboring countries. We'll continue now negotiations with Togo and implement a mutually agreed maritime boundary line. We want our agreement with Togo, when signed, to be a state-of-the-art one, and one of the breaking points so far as the history of maritime boundaries is concerned. We will continue with our mapping exercise. We want to establish a systematic geodata base to manage Ghana's international boundaries. We're also looking at hosting, for the very first time in Africa, an African Conference on Maritime Boundaries and International Law. We're seeking for funding for that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, in conclusion, as a commission, we rely on the expertise and skills of people in various agencies in advancing our mandate. That is the reason why the composition of the governing board and the various technical committees reflects. In the coming years, we expect the Ghana Boundary Commission to continue receiving unflinching support from partners, stakeholders, ministries, and development partners, and what have you, who have worked tirelessly with us in the course of the year. We also hope to develop a new partnership to help the Commission better execute its mandate. I want to end up by displaying our various social media, our website, and the social media platforms that you can always follow at any time, and you can get an up-to-date information on the activities of the Boundary Commission. Honorable Deputy Ministers, this is the end of the story of the Ghana Boundary Commission. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Major General Kotia. That presentation was just wonderful, so insightful. And there is so much that I believe all of us have taken from this presentation. Most importantly, the fact that the importance of collaboration with other agencies like the Ghana Immigration Service and the Ghana Navy cannot be overemphasized. It is also worth noting that you mentioned that currently we have no land disputes, and mostly what you are doing now is reaffirmation of our boundaries. You also mentioned that when it comes to our maritime disputes, currently you are looking at some negotiations with Togo, which is successful so far as negotiations are concerned, and previous maritime disputes we had with La Côte d'Ivoire were resolved through the ITLOS. And all other maritime disputes that may come up, you would adopt that same procedure like the ITLOS or other alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to successfully resolve those. We are very confident that with all the knowledge that you have given out and the collaboration you have, we have no cause to worry, but just go to sleep, knowing that with all the hard work, our land and maritime boundaries are secured. So thank you so much for that insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we'll take your questions. If you have any question, kindly mention your name and affiliation and then proceed to ask your question. Okay, John. Okay.
Thank you. My name is John Awuni Kesbin. When he was speaking, he mentioned that somewhere 2017, Ghana had a maritime settlement with the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea regarding the Ghana-Côte d'Ivoire maritime boundary. And he also mentioned that Ghana and Togo are currently at an advanced stage of concluding that maritime issues or maritime dispute. So I want to find out, if it delays, will they consider taking it to the ITLOS for them to bring finality to the issue between Ghana and then that of Togo? And then the second question is, somewhere in December last year, the president was in the U.S., attending the U.S.-Africa Summit, and he mentioned the Russian missionaries that are in the northern part of Ghana, that is Burkina Faso, who were contracted to help bring the jihadis dispute or jihadis problems over there. And then they were given some mining areas which is closer to Ghana to mine. And they were mining into virtually Ghana. So I don't know, what is the latest on that? And most of the tours that they've been to the northern part, what have they found regarding the Russian missionaries mining on our land? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. We'll take
thank you. My name is Atamensa from Ghana News Agency. As Major General said in his presentation, that he's appealing for support from the international community to support the deprived border communities with clinics, roads, potable water, and all those things. And he cited dollar power, even it doesn't have access routes, and they have to reach there with flight. I want to find out, is it an admission that Ghana government is not paying attention to the needs of the border communities? And would he advocate a special development agency to provide these amenities? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We can take 3 more questions if there are any hands. Okay.
Yes. Good morning, General. You are welcome. When there is a mineral deposit that spans, say, from Ghana to Togo, or say Ghana to Côte d'Ivoire, or Ghana to Burkina Faso, definitely there's going to be a scramble for or to capture that particular mineral. When things of literature arise, how do you solve that problem? Because most invariably, when there's a mineral, there's going to be a contention for the mineral. How do you resolve that issue?
Thank you for the question, Nana. If there are any hands, if not, I take that to be the last question. I will invite Major General Kotia back for his responses.
before I take on the first question, I'll just make an explanation of one of the pictures. Go back to the pictorials. Go back to the pictorials. The other one. Let's see the other one. No, the pictorials, so not this one. Those, the second one. There are 2 pages of the pictorials. Okay. Go to the one that we have the pillar in the restaurants. The last one. Okay, good. So this pillar on the right is in the center of a restaurant. That was found in the Ghana-Burkina border, around Paga, the Paga border. Now, this is a pillar that somebody has constructed, and we went with the Burkina Faso Boundary Commission, Land Boundary Commission, and inspected it together. What we realized was that they were supposed to be, a buffer zone between these pillars, but people have built to such an extent that they have constructed a restaurant around the pillar. Now, currently, we are in talks with Burkina Faso so that we would conduct an exercise there in collaboration with the various immigration entities so that we would clear those areas, because one, the boundary is a marking point for both Ghana and a neighboring country. So this pillar that you see, one side of it has a number indicating that this side is Ghana, and the other side indicates that that's Burkina Faso. So if we lose that boundary, that pillar, it means that we are going to lose the demarcations along that line. That is the explanation I want to make. The Deputy Minister alerted me to make that explanation. The 2017 ITLOS vis-a-vis Ghana-Togo. Yes, you know, there are various ways by which you can resolve disputes. One way is to go for arbitration. Another way is that you can negotiate with a neighboring country. And in the ITLOS, it really gives you room for that. Now, for Ghana and Togo, it's progressing very well so far as those discussions are concerned. One cannot say that that should be the only one. It happened with Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. So various means are available for Ghana and Togo to use to resolve that thing. But what I can say is that I think that the negotiations have been going on well, and we are hoping that it will end up well. Once it doesn't end up well, probably government will decide or what action to be taken. That is not the Ghana Boundary Commission that will decide. Take note about it. Now, on the issue of Wagner, I didn't hear anybody saying that Wagner was giving mines closer to Ghana or in Ghana's territory. If it's even closer to Ghana, it's not our territory. That should not really be a problem for us. And it is not our responsibility as a boundary commission to do. Our responsibility is to make sure that nobody crosses our international boundary line to come into Ghana to organize any mining activity. Now, if that is happening, we would need to draw our counterparts' attention, and we will go for reaffirmation and probably resolve it. Now, when I was listing out the activities or the mandate of the commission, I mentioned that one of the key strengths that we have is to negotiate to resolve disputes. And so far, that is what we have been applying, and we have been doing it. We think that that should be the way forward, so far as any dispute between a neighboring country is concerned. Now, talking about accessibility to border communities, it isn't that government, I didn't mention that government was not doing anything about it. What I was saying was that we need support from all angles, including Ghana. Government has actually supported us in doing a number of, undertaking a number of projects in the border communities. I mentioned that Dollar Power is a state-sponsored activity that the Ministry of Roads. If Ministry of Roads has released that amount of money, it means the government of Ghana. So the opening of the access road to Dollar Power is a government of Ghana activity that is undertaken. So, but then what we are saying is that there are so many activities that we can depend on various agencies that are also in the country that are providing such support. For instance, if you take the World Food Program, one of their key strategies is to identify deprived communities to provide certain incentives to them. Now, if they are here undertaking that project and we approach them and say that there are other deprived communities, and when we are going, they should accompany us for us to go and do it. It doesn't mean that we are not able to provide, but then they can supplement whatever is happening in that regard. The Minister of National Security has been doing a lot of work in the border areas concerning provision of water through the drilling of boreholes. So I can attest to that especially. Mineral deposits across our boundaries, yes, it can happen, and it's a very interesting question. Once that happens, the Ghana Boundary Commission comes into place. It comes in for negotiations. The negotiation can be that let's drill and leave a buffer zone. We shouldn't go beyond those buffer zones, whether underground or surface. The other option can be that where the boundary line is, probably we can do joint mining and share. I mean, there are various options that are there. But the issue is that it will definitely be resolved through negotiations. And I don't think that we'll have a problem with that. That is the essence of the African Union Convention on Cross-Border Cooperation. The basic underlying principle of it is that we should be able to talk among ourselves when there are issues like that, to be able to resolve. Currently, we have various water bodies that straddle between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. And what the strategy we are adopting is to discuss among ourselves, to go to the ground and see how best we can resolve this issue so that both countries will be satisfied. And that is the strategy that the Ghana Boundary Commission is adopting. Ours is negotiation. Ours is to ensure that there is peace in the country. Ours is to ensure that boundaries do not create instability in the country and for you to live peacefully. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. Please, if you have any follow-up questions, we'll take 2 more questions. If there are no questions, we draw the curtain on today's press briefing. On that note, National Coordinator for Boundary Commission, Deputy Minister was here. He just left the room. I would like to thank you so much for coming here with your team. I believe this should be a see you again and not a goodbye. We really appreciate agencies using this platform to engage the Ghanaian public for the purpose of information dissemination. And it goes a long way to help in educating our public so that if they see any activity within the vicinities of our boundary communities, they are confident to draw the attention of authorities to it so that they can be peacefully resolved. So thank you so much for making time to join us today. To the press, once again, we pray that you carry the stories out there, you will inform the public and educate Ghanaians so that together we can support the Boundary Commission to execute their mandate successfully. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And to GTV, thank you so much for always carrying our press briefing live. And good afternoon, and thanks for joining us.